you're here, guess we'll talk. Today, we're going to talk about what I've learned in the adult education program thus far. It's been a very informative journey. I've learned a lot about myself, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about what I've learned as far as what I want to do with my degree, as well as where adult education is going in the future. Um, a lot of this stuff I kind of had an idea of, but I didn't really have terms to match the ideas. So I've learned that I am a student centered um, educator. I care about what the person is learning or what the student is learning. I care how they're learning. I have a general interest in them in general. um, I think it's because they inspire me, um, and I feel like I can learn from them as well. Um, I also feel like education is empowering, especially for people of color, because we weren't always afforded that opportunity. And some of this conversation will repeat again because it kind of ties into my philosophy of adult education. So, um, along with being student centered, I try to engage the students. I like to have dialogue. I like to know what their experiences are like, because I feel like you can learn a lot from your experiences. And um, when you're able to tie theory into your everyday life, it it makes more sense. So, some of the theories that I am closely tied to as far as adult education is concerned, one of them um, is critical thinking or critical theory, in which a person or a student is taught to um, critique social conditions. They're also taught to challenge universal ideals and the dominant culture. So instead of accepting what's supposed to be the norm, we question, is it supposed to be the norm, and why is it? Like, who sets the norm? Why is it that the dominant culture is the one that sets the norm? With critical theory, the underlying notion is that by challenging the dominant ideals, we are able to socially emancipate ourselves or um, become free from oppression. The other thing that I found interesting, and this was kind of tied into my book review, is emotional intelligence. Um, from day to day, we're always taught that the IQ is what really speaks to a person's achievement, or kind of predicts achievement. Well, Daniel Goleman and others kind of challenge that, but particularly in his book, Emotional Intelligence, why the IQ, something other. I'm gonna have to get that title. Anyway, um, in Daniel Goleman's book on emotional intelligence, it kind of challenges that idea that the IQ is more relevant than emotional intelligence. Um, and it honestly, it makes sense because those people who are able to um, manage their emotions are able to build interpersonal relationships. They're able to be empathetic to other people and kind of walk in their shoes, so they make great leaders. Like I said, they're able to, um, I wouldn't say manipulate, but they are able to encourage people um, without problems. So I thought that was really interesting. And also talked about um, people with suffering from depression and how that can have an effect on their physical health, and how managing that emotion of depression can um, I, I wouldn't say stop, but slow down the process of um, ailments like cancer and things of that nature. The other idea that I kind of came across, or the other thing that I really learned about myself, is now that we've been introduced to the idea of andragogy, um, I realized that a lot of my learning, well, I know a lot of my learning has been pedagogical, but I'm kind of used to it. I'm not used to the idea of the amount of autonomy that we get. So I kind of had to feel my way through a lot of the assignments and things of that nature, because you all gave us parameters, but um, the parameters weren't like what you get when you're under a pedagogical type educator. In addition to that, you we're encouraged to question authority, whereas in pedagogy, the authority is the person who knows all, as opposed to in andragogy where the student and the instructor kind of have an understanding that we don't both know everything, we can learn from each other. So the idea that the instructor facilitates the um, questioning and the challenging of themselves is kind of odd to me, but I'm working with it. Finally, what I've learned about myself, which is probably the most important, is my philosophical idea of adult education. It's a combination of three of the different types of adult education, the least of which is the progressive view of adult education. And from that particular viewpoint, I've drawn the reliance of experience as a source of knowledge, as opposed to one person being the authority and the knowledge flowing from them. Everybody has experiences, and their knowledge is gained from those experiences. And that social action and social reform are actually a concern of the educator. So as an educator, I am concerned that, or I want people to know that through their education they can make social change. Then there's the radical viewpoint of adult education, which I have a stronger tie to, much stronger than the progressive. And that particular theory or view is the belief that education is critical to social change. So we encourage the student to educate themselves in terms of what's going on socially, and by educating themselves and learning socially, they're able to free themselves from oppression by the dominant culture. They're also encouraged to question the dominant culture, which kind of ties into the critical theory that we talked about earlier. The final philosophy of adult education that I'm strongest tied to is the humanistic philosophy of adult education. And it states that the human is innately positive and possesses a limitless amount of potential. They're also seen, or it also encourages personal growth as well as self-direction, as far as how the adult educator runs the classroom. So I've always kind of felt like a person. I've had students who say, well, I'm not as smart as such and such. And in my mind, I don't think that it's not that you're not as smart. I feel like you're not working to your potential. So everybody has the opportunity, not necessarily the same opportunities, but in a particular classroom, you're getting the same information. You process it different, but you still have the opportunity and the abilities to get an A just like everybody else. I don't think that you should count yourself as not being smart. I think that it's all in how you engage yourself and how you um, utilize the potential that you have. I think that adult education will see great growth. At this point, there has been a lot of growth. Um, they will continue um, in terms of economy. The the recession that we saw have caused people to lose jobs, and so they're having to go back and um, retool themselves as far as job skills. There are some people who are having to fine tune those skills that they have at their current job. So this education is being done or performed by adult educators. They are teaching continuing education, which, like I said, helps people to fine tune their skills at work or to keep current with, the current changing in their fields. There are people who are teaching at community colleges who are teaching new skills so that people can get new jobs where they had been laid off. So there's a lot of growth in the area, and I believe will continue to grow as a practice. The other thing that I see happening, I kind of read about, is the professionalization of the practice. Um, Up to this point, because adult education is so far reaching and so far stretching, it's been kind of a challenge to professionalize and kind of group all of the areas into one umbrella, because you have informal learning, you have formal learning, you have non-formal learning, and within these umbrellas you have a whole lot of different avenues, different job opportunities. So it's been kind of difficult trying to group all of these under one umbrella. But in the literature that I've read, professionalization in the practice is coming. I think that my degree will open additional opportunities for me in my current role, and it is my hope that I will be able to touch more people at the university level, in addition to being able to actually go out and begin to engage the community in, you know, a meaningful way. So potentially being able to create community programs for adult learners, in addition to managing programs here at the university that may engage the current student and the community. So I think that the degree will help me to make a bigger impact. Here again, tying into the radical philosophy of adult education, it would allow me to make a greater impact, thus encouraging social change, not just for a certain sect of people, but change for the better for all people. So at this point in my life, I feel like I've kind of stopped moving forward. And I've always been a person who I, I'm a lifelong learner. That's one thing that I forgot to say about that I learned about myself. I love education. I love going to class. So I've done personal enrichment classes at GTCC, um, from photography, sewing, real estate. So there have been a number of things. Oh, yes, and sign language as well. I really like sign language and sewing, and I continually go to these classes so that I can continue to learn and continue to grow as a person. And I hope that I will continue to grow until I'm no longer growing. So in most cases, we've learned something, but we can't really put our finger on what we've learned. So actually going back and looking at those things that I didn't know before and realizing, hey, there's some things that I knew that I didn't know had a title. One thing I forgot to mention that I learned is about embodied learning. And coming from a small town, um, there's certain things that happen that, like I said, we don't really put a name to. Like, I have had relatives who can tell when it's about to rain. And as a young person, I thought it was kind of strange, but as I've gotten older, I realized that there's a certain smell. You know, the wind begins to blow a certain type of way. So that embodied learning really was an interest of mine as well. A lot of times we may be smart in a particular area, and that's simply because of our experiences, and some people may not be. But I don't think it's a thing of less intelligence. It's just the context of the intelligence. So it's been a great first semester, in that I've learned a lot. Um, I know that I have a lot more to go, a lot more to learn, and I'm really excited about what is to come, because I know that we'll dive deeper into the different types of philosophies, the different types of education, the different types of ways to gain knowledge, things of that nature. So, critical reflection number 3 for me, it wasn't terribly difficult. I think trying to determine what technology that I wanted to use was probably the most difficult. Thank goodness I had assistance with this particular type of technology. So it was fun. I hope it is educational, and hopefully somebody can gain from it. I know I did. So thanks. Have a good day.